Although the Panama Canal is perhaps one of the oldest and most popular canals in the world, there is a problem with it. It's dying. Yep, you've seen the news and read the headlines. The stories of the Panama Canal's decline surface every year, and unfortunately, they are true. Frankly, this is a crisis nobody would have even imagined a few decades ago. But today it makes the future of the Panama Canal murky, and the only question remains: what will happen after the canal becomes inoperable? If you know anything about the Panama Canal, you'll know that it's no ordinary canal. The creation of this one canal is probably the single most impressive achievement in engineering history, even till this day. It first became operational in 1914 and was known for drastically cutting back long weeks of water travel by connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Today, it handles roughly 5% of the entire world's trade, and while that number might sound small, it's massive when you consider that the global trade market is worth roughly $35 trillion. Of course, we know that the Panama Canal was built to reduce the time it took for cargo ships to travel long trade routes, but that's just one aspect of it. Before the canal was built, cargo ships had to take extremely risky and volatile routes to get to their destination, and not only would this maritime transport network cost more, but it also put lives at risk due to the dangers present in the water. Some of these journeys could even take months, and there was a high chance that the cargo wouldn't even arrive in the end, as the ships would get stuck somewhere and eventually have to be abandoned. The first plan for the Panama Canal was proposed in 1902, and it was meant to give these ships a passageway through Central America, which would cut down the total travel time of the ships by more than 12,000 kilometers and save them many weeks. However, as with most large-scale projects, this one wasn't the easiest to execute. Long years of planning, constructing, manual labor, and maintenance went into building this canal and making it fully operational. On top of that, there were tons of roadblocks and hiccups along the way that just made things that much more difficult. Back when work initially started, more old-school techniques like dynamites and explosives were used to carve the land for the Panama Canal. Surprisingly, some very cool drills and steam-powered shoveling machines were used to dig more than 200 million cubic meters of land and pave the foundation for the canal. However, don't let the talk of machines fool you into believing no manual labor was employed. One of the infamous tragedies of the Panama Canal is that more than 6,000 labor workers lost their lives while building it. And the deaths weren't due to one single problem: excessive heat leading to heat strokes on site, landslides in rocky areas, and a lack of medical oversight all contributed to the terrifying number of deaths. Now, one major difficulty with building the canal at the time was the fact that there was a massive difference in elevation between the highest and the lowest point of the canal. After a long time of planning and pondering, engineering crews proposed building locks and gates that almost acted like steps, allowing the ships to climb and descend as they journeyed through the canal. This idea was obviously genius and helped the engineers break through a massive planning hurdle. In the early 1900s, the total cost of this canal project was roughly $375 million, and today that translates to $12 billion. During the initial years of smooth operation, only a couple of cargo ships sailed through the canal, but over the years, this number has grown exponentially as the world recognized how important and efficient this route truly is. That said, while the canal has faced its fair share of challenges in the past, it's experiencing one more challenge as of today. Its water level is depleting fast. You've probably read about it on the internet or seen it on the news. It's everywhere. What initially began as a simple concern has turned into a serious structural issue, and it's degrading the operational efficiency of the canal day by day. To give you an idea, at its peak, the Panama Canal would have anywhere between 35 to 40 ships passing through it on a daily basis, but now this number has fallen down to the 20s, and the trend suggests it will only continue declining unless some serious, large-scale action is taken. What's even worse is that larger cargo ships that would once sail through this canal carrying their maximum weight capacity are now forced to carry significantly less cargo. Consequently, freight rates are touching the sky right now, and it's making the global trade market extremely unhappy and volatile. Gatun Lake, which is the primary water source for the Panama Canal, is worse off than it has ever been in the past few decades. The water level has depleted drastically, and it's making the survival of the canal a distant dream. Now you might ask, why is this happening? Can't the water just be restored? Well, the answer to this question is a lot more complex than you'd like. The canal is not just up against natural water level depletion, but global climate change has also visibly affected it. Droughts have become manyfold more frequent than in the past, and water levels in major reservoirs are starting to feel the effect of this change. Things aren't the same anymore, especially for the Panama Canal, which still accommodates a meaningful percentage of global trade. Fortunately or unfortunately, the echoes of the Panama Canal's decline are way too loud, and it's making people wonder if it can pull through. If the Panama Canal were to shut down and cease accommodating cargo ships, global trade and supply chain networks would be the first to feel the effects. Ships en route to the canal will have to change route and probably take a longer one, adding weeks to the journey and risking fuel depletion. On top of that, freight rates would probably jump 2 or 3 times their current highs and disrupt global trade logistics on a very large scale. Every year, the number of ships in the canal continues to grow disproportionately to the declining water level, all while the canal is having trouble accommodating all these ships. Practically speaking, the answer to the question of whether the Panama Canal will survive this change or not does not lie in waiting. It lies in action. Many countries and companies have already started to take action to capture a piece of this massive global trade market. New plans and projects have been popping up from time to time, proposing different solutions and strategies on how this golden opportunity can be seized and taken advantage of. It wouldn't be wrong to say that while some might see the canal's decline as only threatening, other parties are interested in providing a new cargo shipping network that might even be better and more efficient than the Panama Canal. Coming in first is Mexico's interoceanic corridor, and unlike the Panama Canal, it actually offers a 300-plus kilometer railway network connecting the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean. The railway line starts at the port of Coatzacoalcos and stretches all the way to Salina Cruz towards the Pacific coast. In this sort of network, cargo is unloaded from one port, transported to the target destination, and then reloaded there. At its heart, the point of this corridor is not just to serve as a faster route, but also a considerably safer one, protecting cargo from the potential dangers around South America. While the train route isn't much faster than the Panama Canal, it's a viable option while the canal is undergoing a challenging time. Additionally, with the corridor's expansion plans, it will be well on its way to handling up to 1.4 million TEUs annually. This is no 5% of global trade and logistics, but it is still enough to prove to be a steady and reliable alternative to the canal. The total cost of this project is estimated to be roughly $7.5 billion, which is no small sum. Another possible alternative to the Panama Canal belongs to Colombia. However, here alternative isn't the ideal word, and Colombia's offering is more complementary than anything else. Like Mexico, Colombia holds the ambition to connect its Atlantic and Pacific coasts through a railway network stretching more than 240 kilometers. This network is supposed to connect the ports of Cupica, Jorando, and Acandi to the Panama border, which is a pretty ambitious vision. That said, the project is still in its feasibility phase, and studies are ongoing on how the vision can be executed to perfection. Credible sources suggest that the railway network can cost Colombia anywhere between $8 to $13 billion, but the country doesn't seem too stressed about the financial side of things, since this project is part of a major railway infrastructure revival strategy. One major hurdle for Colombia regarding its railway project is the fact that the rail routes cut through some very risky and volatile forest areas. Construction crews will have to seek permission from indigenous tribes that reside in these areas and work around lingering environmental challenges that could make infrastructure development more difficult than it already is. Critics of this project suggest that the Colombian government should direct its focus and resources to upgrading the current railway infrastructure rather than building a new one. That being said, Colombia's railway project is definitely planned a little further out into the future than I'd like, and concrete information is very limited. Now let's move on to the final Panama Canal rival, Nicaragua's mega canal. In the history of canal development plans, Nicaragua's canal is probably one that had the most hype and chatter around it. Unlike the other railway projects in Mexico and Colombia, Nicaragua's mega canal follows a similar approach to the Panama Canal, where it connects the Puerto de Bluefields to the Puerto Corinto through a roughly 280-kilometer water passageway. If this canal were to come to life, it would be 3 times the size of the Panama Canal, and its route efficiency and cargo handling capabilities would absolutely trump those of the Panama Canal. Unlike the Panama Canal, which is currently having a hard time accommodating large, heavy ships, Nicaragua's mega canal was planned to be built for handling some of the largest ships in the world. The ambition here is certainly commendable, but it comes at a massive cost of more than $65 billion. Yes, you heard that right. $65 billion, which not only makes it the most expensive project of its kind, but also the most massive. If you were to make a direct comparison between Nicaragua's mega canal and the Panama Canal, their structural differences would just amaze you. The Panama Canal, with a width of just 90 to 300 meters and a depth of less than 14 meters, absolutely dwarfs in comparison to Nicaragua's mega canal, which has a proposed width of 230 to 280 meters and a depth of 27 to 29 meters. It's safe to say that with the decline of the Panama Canal coming in slowly, Nicaragua's mega canal was already set up for success. Now, if you're wondering why I keep using the word "was" when talking about Nicaragua's canal project, you'll have to understand the controversy surrounding it and how they served as major roadblocks in the way of this canal project coming to life. The first major hurdle for constructing the canal is the funding. Anyone can have the most ambitious plan in the world, but funding it is no easy task, even for governments themselves. HKND Group, a Chinese company, was the first to back the canal project, but due to reasons unknown to the public, they've chosen to back away and completely abandon the enthusiasm they once had. Since this development, other major investors have also opted out, and private groups don't seem too keen on being a part of this ambitious project for some odd reason. The financial side of Nicaragua's canal project doesn't seem too bright, and without solid investor confidence, the project might forever remain only an ambitious dream. Other than the cost of labor, resources, and development, there's another cost to the project, an environmental cost that, although invisible, is certainly a real one. The route of the canal passes through tons of different forest ecosystems and sensitive areas. Unsurprisingly, they are some of Central America's most challenging locations to work around. Researchers suggest that construction activity for the canal would disturb wildlife and hinder the impressive biodiversity present in these areas. Local tribes that reside here aren't too keen on the development either, and many can get displaced once work begins in full force. Believe it or not, despite all the lingering challenges, the Nicaraguan government still intends to continue pushing the project and finding investors that can help kick things off. To make the project more viable and hop over to the good side of the fence, they've even proposed some changes in the route of the canal and are actively trying to seek the approval of locals and research bodies. However, despite the government's best efforts, researchers still remain skeptical and believe that the environmental risks outweigh the rewards of building the mega canal. To outsiders, the financial and logistical challenges raise the question of whether this project is even viable in the bigger picture. For now, this canal is only a distant dream, and whether or not this dream is turned into reality will depend on whether the Nicaraguan government can attract investment and bring in the right resources needed to execute the project perfectly. If it does ever become a reality, however, it can easily take away the dominance of the Panama Canal and go on to become a mega project with a double-digit share in the global trade market. While these are some of the main competitors offering a dominant alternative to the Panama Canal, there are a few other countries and companies also emerging with practical solutions. Strangely enough, Panama itself is trying to develop the plans for a land-based alternative to the canal. Like competitors, their primary approach is an effective railway passage that connects the Atlantic and Pacific coasts. The only difference is that they might even consider developing a truck corridor alongside to complement the rail route. However, keep in mind that this project is said to come online and commence operation in 2045, which obviously is very far out in the future. By then, the plan is to optimize the rail and truck corridor to be able to accommodate around 5 million cargo containers every year. The development of this project means that cargo shipments won't have to rely on declining water reserves in the Panama Canal. And even if it isn't a complete alternative to the canal, it can still take some stress and strain off of it during upcoming periods of sharp decline in the canal's handling capabilities. Many think Panama is developing this project as a backup option in case the canal's operations take a major hit. Honduras, a strategically important country in Central America, appears to be in the early stages of developing plans for building an interoceanic railway network. This network is said to connect Amapala to Puerto Cortes, serving as a bridge between the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. Early MOUs and trade agreements were signed with China to draw investor interest to the project and execute every step the right way. Something that I find quite impressive and respectable about Panama's governing body, ACP, is its persistence and belief in its golden goose. It's not willing to give up just yet, despite all the challenges lingering over its head. I wouldn't be surprised if their proposed short-term fixes and long-term improvement plans turn things around for the Panama Canal. If that happens, it's entirely possible that the canal will continue to thrive and maintain a dominant position in the global trade market for many more decades to come. Even at present, despite all the roadblocks and challenges, the Panama Canal generated a revenue of $5 billion, with net profits touching $3.5 billion in 2024. Now that we've discussed the Panama Canal and its emerging competitors in extensive detail, it would be great to hear your opinion on which project you believe is more likely to outrun the Panama Canal going forward. Or maybe you think the Panama Canal will eventually pull through and maintain its position